Currently, it's looking really positive that Universal Britain is actually going to go ahead, albeit it's not confirmed yet. The question is it actually a good thing for the UK? So let's take a look at Universal and compare their American offerings to what we have here in the UK, and there's tons and tons of differences, some positive, some not so much. The first thing you look at is pricing. Now, when I had a look on Universal's website, you can't easily get, or I don't think you can actually get, an individual day ticket online, at least not here. It seems to be a 14-day ticket. Now, that 14-day ticket is very well priced. I was over there a couple of months ago. It was fantastic. I think it worked out at roughly 23 quid a day, something like that, which is way, way cheaper than the parks over here. I mean, if you take a look at, I've picked a Saturday in June across various parks. Blackpool is £40 for the day, Alton Towers is 37, Flamingo Land is 44.50, and Thorpe Park is also 37. So on the face of it, that makes it look like Universal is actually cheaper than what we have right now, which I have to say I'm a little bit surprised by, because you think that's the big guy, they're going to be really expensive. However, that's a massive ticket. You wouldn't buy a 14-day ticket here in the UK. Now, potentially a tourist coming to the UK might, but the rest of us who live here, we're not going to go for 2 weeks to Universal in our own country. I had a look online, there are other third parties that sell individual day tickets to Universal in Orlando, but you're talking about 160 quid for one single day, which it'll be interesting to see what pricing structure they do go with if they go ahead with this park, because I think they'll obviously want to try and be in the same ballpark as the other parks. They probably will be slightly higher because I suspect their offering is going to be greater than what we get. But yeah, I'm really curious to see what they do with pricing, because who's going to pay £160 for one day entry to a theme park in the UK? And the next obvious thing you've got to talk about when you look at the big parks like Universal is theming. Now, we say we have theme parks in the UK, but really, we don't. I mean, Blackpool isn't even a theme park, it's an amusement park. There is no theming on the rides, there is no themed areas. You take a look at something like Alton Towers and Thorpe Park, they do have themed areas. And actually, if you look at Nemesis Reborn, it's probably one of the best examples we've got here in the UK right now of anything that's themed. It is spectacular, but it is not the norm. And it is also not on a Universal or Disney scale. You look at something like Jurassic World or Harry Potter Land over in Universal Studios, those are insanely immersive. And if we get that level of theming here in the UK, it's going to be something that many people have never seen. Bear in mind, not everybody goes out to Florida. That is an expensive trip for a lot of people. So, it'd be really good to see if we get theming on that scale. So another thing that I'm really curious to see that I think will be a massive shake-up for us over here is the food offerings. Now, if you take a look at Universal, they have a ridiculous number of options over in Orlando, both in the parks as well as City Walk. And they basically said that, if they go ahead with this, there will be a City Walk-esque area. So, we're going to see that level of restaurants and immersion, and, even when you go into those restaurants, you look at something like the Toothless Emporium, I think it's called, the chocolate place, like the theming in there is insane. We went to various restaurants when we were over there. There was a Mexican one that was absolutely stunning. The food was great, the atmosphere was great, live music, all sorts of stuff. We just don't have that here. But even the quick service, they are... You take a look at, again, I'm going to use the same two parks. If you look at something like Blackpool, and I know that's probably an unfair comparison, you've got, a family-run park versus a big, multinational conglomerate, effectively. But, they've got a decent selection, but it's all fairly basic foods. You take a look at the Merlin Group, Alton Towers, etc. They obviously brought Arrowmark in last year, and that's not really been the best thing for them so far. Prices have gone that way, and food quality has gone that way. There are some glimmers of hope, like you look at the food outlet outside of Curse at Alton Manor. They've got a kind of themed experience. It's a very small scale, and you can see that Alton Towers are trying to do stuff like that. You even look at the Starbucks now in Forbidden Valley, and it's all themed. It's got all the kind of phalanx stuff, and where's Percy and all that. So there is small signs of this in the parks in the UK, but it is very small scale, and certainly, again, nothing like what you would see in a Universal. So personally, I think if they come here, they're going to improve or shake up what standards of food we expect from a theme park. Now, they might also raise the bar in terms of price. They aren't the cheapest. You go over to Florida and you buy food in Disney or Universal, it ain't cheap. So it'll be interesting to see if they, what price points they have. But I think if we can get that level of food in a park, you kind of don't begrudge paying it as much as you do the Aramark, right? You look at the pasta pizza place in Alton Towers, I think when I was there, it was 21 quid a head for basic pizza and salad. Like, it's just not great. So that's another area that I think will be challenged if Universal go ahead. Now, another key thing when you go to a theme park is how good the operations are. And, we've got kind of a mixed bag here in the UK, and even within the parks, they're kind of inconsistent. There can be days you go to the park and they are just chucking those trains out constantly. They're totally on top of it. Queues are moving, doesn't matter how busy the park is, they are just going. And there's other days where it can take them like 5 minutes to chuck a train out. And that varies by ride as well. Again, if you look at something like Towers, Galactica is a prime example of a ride that is very poorly operated, so slow, not great. Universal, on the other hand, they do have their off days, as you would expect, but in general, their kind of operations are, they are throwing the trains out constantly. So I am really keen to see, I did a video a while back where it looked like Universal might repurchase PortAventura that they used to own. That's a park that desperately needs some operational help, and I think Universal is one of the parks that is capable of doing that. So it'd be interesting to see, will that put the pressure on the parks over here to step their game up again in that area as well, because, whilst I expect you will have long queues for a Universal park, it's kind of typical. You don't mind a queue so much when it's moving as a queue that you're stuck in and it doesn't move for 5 minutes. So it'd be really interesting to see what their operations are and how that influences the other parks around the UK. Now, the other thing I'm kind of curious about is they've made quite a song and dance about their choice of location. A lot of people were like, why Bedford? It's just like, why? It's not an area that immediately springs to mind. But, they've done their due diligence, and in their session they had recently, the public consultation, they did say that something ridiculous like 50% of the population is within 2 hours of that site, which is crazy. People like myself, it's a little bit harder. I suppose I could fly to Luton, but then the flight times are terrible and it's 150 quid return flight, so that's not really viable. However, they've kind of obviously done their research. They believe that this is a really good location in terms of getting a large portion of people in, including international tourists, right? A lot of people will fly into London, and getting from London to Bedford isn't that difficult. So, you take a look at the other parks, I would say Towers is probably more central in terms of UK, although obviously there's a lot of stuff down south, but it's more central. Blackpool, to me that's south, but to a lot of people that's up north. Same with Flamingoland. The key thing here though is that they're obviously very keen to get the infrastructure in, both roads and rail, and of course, as I just said, it's not that far from Luton. So you take a look at Blackpool, sure, it's got a train station right behind it, it's easy to drive to. Alton Towers is a real pain in the backside for most people. It's not the most accessible park. You can't get public transport. There's a terrible bus service. It's like in the middle of nowhere. They've obviously done this in such a way they're going to be 2 train stations, a brand new one, move an existing one, and access to a main road, and again within reasonable distance of an airport. So I think that is going to be a massive strength for them. Other parks can't exactly pick up and move. Alton Towers can't go, we're going to move to, I don't know, Bedford 2.0. So I think that's going to be interesting, because if more people can get to that park, what does that mean for the other parks? There's obviously enthusiasts like myself, and probably you guys watching this, who will want to visit every park. So, you don't care if it's a 3-hour drive or 4-hour drive, you're going to go to that park anyway. The general public, on the other hand, they're going to find something local. And if it's, an hour and a half to go to Alton Towers, or 2 hours to go to a massive Universal park, I think a lot of people might be swayed to Universal. So it'll be interesting to see how location plays a part, but they've obviously picked that very strategically. And as I say, the other parks can't exactly get up and move. Now, another thing that they have made a massive song and dance about, and I can understand why, is the impact they're going to have on the economy in a positive way. You know, they're looking to, I think they've said up to 8,000 members of staff will be employed. Obviously, that will be ride ops, management, hotels, restaurant workers, you know, the whole shebang, bus drivers, everything. That's, you know, a massive operation for them. And 8,000 people is a ridiculous amount of jobs to create. Now, if you take a look online, it's kind of hard to get exact numbers, but, you know, Google tries to guess. There's an estimate that Towers has about 2,500 staff right now, Thorpe Park about 1,400, and Blackpool is as little as 600. So 8,000 jobs for a park. Kind of also indicates the scale of what we're talking about here. I mean, that's, what, 3 times the number of staff as Alton Towers? That's a lot. That's a huge impact on the economy. And, you know, can only be a good thing. So personally, I am super excited for this possibility. I know nothing is guaranteed yet. I know there is still a chance this is not going to go through, but I think everybody is starting to believe that this might actually happen. The pace that is going at, you know, the things that they've thought through already, the fact that they've done this multiple times around the world, this isn't their first rodeo, they know exactly what they're doing. I genuinely hope this goes ahead. I think it would be a massively positive thing for the rest of the industry. You know, I'm not personally worried that they're going to squeeze the little guys out. I think they're going to be a very different offering. Again, if you look at the extremes, Blackpool isn't competing with Universal. They are their own thing, and they will stay their own thing. And Merlin, let's be fair, they could do with a kick up the backside a little bit. So I genuinely think, I really hope this goes ahead. I genuinely do. And I'd love to hear your comments below. Do you think that this is a good thing? Are you worried about it? And actually, do you think it's going to happen? You know, are we all just getting a little bit too excited here? Because nothing's confirmed. And even if it does go ahead, you know, the ballpark we're talking here is still, what, 2030-ish for an opening? That's still 5-6 years away. So there's a lot could happen. However, I'd love to hear your comments. Let me know in the comments below. Hit that like button, hit subscribe. I've been Chris. You've been watching Coaster Dad. See you in the next one.